بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let me just adjust this here quickly. It looks so much nicer. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, I greet you with a message of peace and all the good meanings that salam and the rahmah and barakah could possibly hold on this very chilly winter morning here from South Africa. I do also humbly make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with as much sincerity as my black heart could possibly muster, that He protects us from the severe cold of Jahannam. I was recently asked, is there a place in Jahannam that's cold? So I do recall in the Quran something referred to as Zamharir, which is a place so cold in Jahannam that when the people would be forced to enter it, they would pray for heat again. That's how cold it is, right? So we can't exactly even imagine how cold that must be. But we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us from that. And effectively, like we mentioned in the previous Jumu'ah, this should be a time, in fact, not only this, but every occasion in a Muslim's life must be an occasion where he takes a lesson for his akhirah, right? So you're having a barbecue, a braai, and you see the coals burning and you think to yourself about Jahannam, what it must be like. I mean, if meat is getting cooked, what is Jahannam going to be like? If it's a cold, chilly winter's morning, then you make that dua, Allahumma ajirni min zamhariri Jahannam, and you think about how cold it must be, or it's going to be in that specific place in Jahannam, and we seek Allah's protection from it. So everything in our life should be a means of learning a lesson, and it should be a means of drawing our attention to akhirah. That's why I always say, keep your eyes and your ears open, brothers and sisters in Islam, because as one pious man said, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests his servants, he tests them with things, and that test doesn't go away, or he puts them to trials, and that trial would not go away until he learns the lesson that he needs to learn. So we pray that Allah opens our hearts and our eyes and our ears to learn the lessons that we need to learn from the obstacles and the difficulties that we face in our lives, so that we can grow and develop as Muslims. Having said that for my introduction, the topic of today's lecture is the status of a father in Islam. And I would like to diversify it a little bit, but just to discuss, there's a hadith that speaks about that the father is the door, is the key to Jannah. Your father is your door to Jannah. So you can break, not the key, so the door. So you can break that door if you want, or you can look after that door if you want. So the answer to this question is, well, if you break the door, you're going to go through, aren't you? So what's the analogy is actually like the lock. If you break the lock on a door and it's not working anymore, how are you going to fit the key in? And you'll have to break down the door, right? And unfortunately, if you break down this door, you can have an even bigger problem than just breaking the lock. So we need to, as as Muslims, respect and honor our parents. And like I said to people in divorce cases as well, Allah is not going to ask you why your parents got divorced. Allah is going to ask you, did you honor your mother and did you honor your father? Did you respect your mother and did you respect your father? Those are the questions that are going to be posed to us. So let us worry about what's within the circle of our volition and work on that. Don't worry about external factors, right? Now, we all know that the conventional role of a father is to discipline the children. It's to look after the children, earn the income for the family, be the breadwinner for the family. That is the conventional situation. However, in our current social setup, we find that many mothers are also working. So we have two working parents. We have a mother and a father who both come home from work after the children have come back from madrasa and school, and they're both kind of scrambling to do homework with the children, etc. So I think the roles have changed significantly, but that does not detract from the assigned virtues that the hadith has described or mentioned for the mother and the father. But I'd like to diversify this question a little bit, as in the role of a father in Islam. And I'm going to answer it in terms of a question that a friend of mine posed to me a few days ago. It's a difficult question, and it really got me thinking. He said, what makes you, or what makes a person a good parent? And I actually had to sit back and think about this. Now, normally I have answers on off the cuff, right? But I actually had to sit and think about this because effectively he's asking me, Zach, did you ever think whether you're a good parent or not? Understand what I'm saying? So there are a couple of things that I mentioned to him. And for me, first and foremost, being a good parent, and this is why not the I don't want to discuss the role of a father in Islam or the status of father in Islam for us to learn who a father is so that we can, give the necessary respect and honor and right to the father. I would like the fathers in the society to think about their role and whether they're actually fulfilling that role. How effective are they in fulfilling that role? So I mentioned a number of things to him, and one of those points, in fact, I think the first point I mentioned was that a father needs to be a, a role model, an example for his children, and he needs to impart principles in life, make their mindset such that they become valuable, contributing citizens, right? So that doesn't help. I mean, you're not going to help yourself in achieving this goal if you are going to be fighting with your children all the time. You need to display tolerance. You need to display forbearance. Children become naughty. And now, every time you walk in the house, then there's a thing in Afrikaans, "Gogo maak vir baba bang." Your dad is always, I'm going to phone dad. Daddy's going to come and sort you out. I'm going to tell daddy. So daddy is just like the Adolf Hitler of the family. And anything goes wrong, daddy must come jump on the scene and smack people or punish people. Daddy mustn't be somebody who's seen to constantly punish. Daddy must be somebody who sits the children down and imparts valuable concepts to them. And I say this because I was deprived of that from my own father, right? Because he wasn't interested and willing. But I received that from my mother's father. And that's why I always held my grandfather and the Opa Gert, the G, Allahu Akbar, what a legend. I was thinking about him so much over the last 2 months because I've really, really needed his advice right now. So I've had to dig deep into my memory and think about the times I spent with him. And even as a young boy, I mean, my grandfather passed away. I was 24 years old, 25 years old. And prior to that, 4 years prior to that, 5 years prior to that, I had very little to do with him. But until I was about 18, I had quite a lot to do with Oupa Gert, especially in the year 2003, the year 2003. I spent the whole year living with him, and I can never forget as hard, he was a general, right? So he was very authoritarian in his approach. But on the odd occasion when I would jump in the car with him and drive somewhere, when I would, visit with him and just sit and talk with him, or when we would watch cricket and stuff together, then Opa used to impart some very, very interesting things to me. And I benefited greatly from that. So I had to think, and I sat and I thought about how he would teach us principles in life. One of the very important principles I learned from him in life was that if you can't buy something cash, don't buy it. Those are very important words to me, and I've tried my very best to stick to those words, even in business ventures, etc. Rather get an investor in and offer a profit share than borrow the money and start the operation yourself, because anything can happen and then you can't pay that money back, and then you're sitting effectively, you've taken somebody else's things, right? So that was one of the important lessons. And I just looked at his character and his demeanor. Now, listen to the story, right? He was kicked out of his house at the age of 15. His father said to him, "Jy's nou 'n groot man, ek kan jy nie meer oppas nie, jy moet gaan werk en jou eie geld maak en jouself oppas. So you're a big man now, I can't look after you your whole life. You must go and live and you must go and earn it and look after yourself." So at the age of 15, he had to leave home to find work. So he started working at the post office. Then at night, he would use his salary to go for night classes, right? And he finished his matric at the age of 21, if I remember correctly, just through night classes over the next 6 years. And then when he applied for a position in the South African Defence Force as a civilian, employee, They were shocked at the fact that a 21-year-old man can have 6 years work experience, and by the way, with a formal document from the post office that he's worked here for 6 years, and his matric and everything. So they realized what had happened, and because of his maturity, they gave him the position. Now, those, unfortunately, that was a time when work experience still counted over qualifications. Now, unfortunately, we're living in a very different time. However, what it taught me was that when life throws you stones, build a house. Use the adversity as a stepping stone to improve your situation, because there must be something you can do to get out of it. There must be something that you can do to, you must be able to use that situation to your advantage. And that's something that he taught me. Now, as a father, these are the lessons we're supposed to impart. My daughter came back to me one day and, okay, I cannot stand a couple of things. Number one is disrespect. Number two is dishonesty. And number three is when you think you're better than other people. I cannot digest those three qualities. And I pray that Allah protects me and Allah protects all of us from these qualities. Ameen, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Dishonesty, disrespect, and the third one is thinking you're better than other people. So I'm not saying this to badmouth my daughter. I'm saying this to explain a concept to you. And as parents, we need to draw our children's attention to this. We can't be enabling their behavior. So if my child loses her temper and she starts shouting at me, then I can't be like, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was tolerant. He never took revenge for himself. So I'm going to let it slide. No, because your job is to make a contributing citizen to society. Your job is to set an example for that child, not just in the way you behave. When it's somebody that's above you or somebody that's a peer and you get this flack from them, then you can be tolerant. But with your child who you have to send to somebody else's house to become somebody else's spouse, that child you have to discipline, because anything goes wrong, and that, like I was explaining this example, excuse me, like I was explaining this example. Now, you never reprimand your child for backchatting you. You never reprimand your child for just saying whatever. Then what happens when that child grows up? She will tell her husband whatever, and it's going to be to her own detriment. She will tell her mother-in-law whatever. She will tell everybody in society. She'll tell her boss. She'll tell her fellow employees. She'll tell them whatever she feels like. She'll just speak her mind. She'll just blurt out. And then you can't say, "Oh no, I know my child. She normally says things without thinking." No, you have built that mentality in your child that she thinks that way now, because every time she's done it, you've basically shown her that it's okay. So anyway, my eldest daughter comes to me. She said they were at a function and there was a lecture being given to the ladies, and there was a new Muslim lady sitting there. And every time the orator gave or the speaker gave an important point or mentioned something fascinating, she started clapping. Right. Now, for those who come from a non-Muslim background, like myself, you would understand that you only clap when something is like really good. You don't just, and I could never understand when somebody just comes onto stage, then they must clap. What did he do to deserve hand claps? Anyway, and then he's finished and you clap hands for him. He's spent 10 minutes wasting your life talking nonsense. Anyway, so when somebody does something amazing or something really good that you've been, then you can clap your hands, right? That's the style. So whenever the speaker would say something amazing or fascinating, this lady started clapping her hands. And then my daughter came home and told me, yeah, they went to this function and there was this new Muslim lady, and she couldn't even behave herself properly. So dumb, she didn't even. And then I lost my mind, because exactly like I told you, looking down on other people, I cannot deal with that mentality. I said to her, Hibana, don't you think that you were in that situation because your job was to see that behavior, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to teach you a lesson that when you see somebody doing something like that, they don't know. Now you do know. Since you think you're so clever and you know everything, why didn't you, instead of judging and putting her down and insulting her, why didn't you go and pull her aside and tell the auntie that, auntie, in Islam we're taught not to clap our hands. In Islam we're taught that, when somebody says something amazing or interesting or fascinating, you say MashaAllah, Subhanallah, that kind of a thing. And you could have learned something. Or we go to somebody's house and they come back and tell me how dirty the place was, and they didn't even feel like eating the food. So I'm like, okay, so why didn't you help the lady clean up? Because she spent all her time cooking and preparing for you. Now, instead of helping, you sit and judge and you point fingers and you make rude remarks. How is that going to solve the problem? How did you benefit anyone in society like that? So this is something that I learned from Opa Gert as well, right? That you need to take lesson You need to impart valuable lessons to other people so that they remember it for life. I'll never forget, we were driving in his Camry one day, the same white one I had the accident in. And he says to me, "Oh, Zach, weet jy hoekom is hierdie die beste kar in die wêreld?" So I said, "Nee, oupa." So he says, "But dis my kar, ek skuld niemand geld nie." So the lesson I learned is don't owe people, so you don't have to look into their eyes all the time, right? And that's another thing that I learned from my mom was that spiteful people spite themselves, and that I know everybody learned this one from their omas. Van lekker lag kom lekker huil. If you don't control yourself when you're playing, you go overboard, somebody's going to end up crying, right? So these are things that we learn, and now I'm imparting them to my children. So as a father, ask yourself, your role in society, your role as a father, your position. What are you doing with that position? Are you benefiting your child? Are you imparting valuable information, valuable principles and lessons in life that your child can benefit from? Right? Another thing about Opa Gert, right? And I pray that Allah grants me tawfiq. In fact, I never heard him. My mother only ever heard him swear once in her entire life, right? Never. He wouldn't swear, right? And being a military man, you know how the soldiers are. They know how to swear, right? So one of the soldiers was swearing like that and was in my grandfather's battalion. And he walked up to him and he said one day that, "You know what? Do you swear like this at home?" He was so embarrassed that his the man he like just disappeared, right? He left. His wife phoned my grandfather a few days later and asked him what happened at work because her husband is a changed man. Why? What happened? No, he doesn't swear at all. He hasn't said a single swear word in the last few days. What happened? My grandfather obviously was like just pointing out, you embarrass yourself like this in front of your wife too. So let's think about these things, right? Valuable lessons that we impart. And it's only going to be a man of principle when he imparts this principle that is going to have an effect on our children's lives. So they need to see that they can't look at you and then see that you don't live by your own words, you don't live by your own standards. And this is in the Quran when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about one of the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam, if I'm mistaken, it was Salih alayhi salatu wasalam. He said, "I'm not giving you these instructions and then I'm going against them myself, you know, Akhtaribak in the background. I'm not going against what I'm telling you. All right. I'm also living by these principles. We need to. A second point that I know I've elaborated quite a bit on this point now, imparting to our children, but this brings me to the second point, right? The second point is how much valuable time do you spend with your child, or do you distract your child from having valuable time with you by giving them things, cell phones, computer games, video games, sending them out, sending them with their friends. You know, and this brings me to the third point. Do you have a relationship with your child? Have you built a relationship with your child that your child can come to you at any time and share anything with you, knowing that you're not going to be judgmental, you're not going to lose your mind and start screaming and fighting. You are going to listen what the child has said, and you're going to try and communicate and guide and assist, because that's what your job is as a father. That's what your job is as a parent in general. How many children are not able to come home and explain to their parents what had happened, even if they've made a massive mistake? Whatever the case may be, they've made a massive mistake in their life. Now, you can't take back the mistake that you've made. However, if I can't come and share it with my parents and ask them for assistance, I can say, "Dad, I'm sorry, I made a big mistake. I already have like 10 things running through my mind. What could have possibly happened right now? Just saying these words, and it didn't even happen. May Allah protect all of us, Ya Rab." Now, as a father, have you fostered that kind of a relationship with your child, that your child feels comfortable, that your child feels like your home is her sanctuary or his sanctuary? Your home is the safe place, the haven that your child can escape from or come to for security, for acceptance, for love. Or do we just at this? I get so angry when I hear things like, "Oh, my mother will kick me out the house." I'm like, can a parent kick their child out the house? Can a parent do something like that? Because I had a friend in high school whose mother locked him out of the house. All right. His mother used to regularly lock him out of the house. And eventually he found out that he's got Christian family in Maputo. And what happened? His Christian family in Maputo adopted him because his parents had kicked him out the house. And he became a Christian now. Think about what I'm saying to you, right? So as a father and as a parent, I understand that I have to lay down rules and principles in my life, and if you transgress those limits and you break those boundaries, there are going to be implications, there's going to be repercussions, right? There have to be consequences. Children need to understand that there are consequences, and you need to impart to them the valuable information that it's a small consequence now. You pinched something from the shop, or you took one of your friend's toys and you brought it home and I caught you. It's a small thing now. If I don't discipline you and I don't make you take it back and go and apologize, tomorrow when you're big, you're going to defraud the bank out of 10 million, you're going to sit in jail, and I'm not going to come and bail you out. Understand? So we need to impart these principles, and we need to foster a relationship with our children that they feel comfortable enough coming to us with that problem, never fearing rejection, never fearing that you're going to blow your top and you're going to absolutely just make their lives miserable or write them off. I mean, I saw this in my own family. A woman couldn't tolerate staying with her husband any longer, so she divorced him. Now, these were non-Muslims, right? So she divorced him. Her father and mother disowned her. And it wasn't until they saw her walking on the street, look from door to door, looking for a job because she had children to look after, that they changed their ways. And somebody in the church went and said to them, "Hang on, can't you, how can you do this to your child?" And then they kind of amended that relationship. So think about this. Don't do that. Don't ever do that to your children. Your children must feel like no matter how bad it is, failed every subject in matric and come home and tell my dad, "I'm sorry, I didn't study. What must I do?" Well, he's going to be like, "Okay, bro, you didn't study. And I saw you weren't studying this whole year. I was encouraging you and you didn't listen. Now you've learnt your lesson, haven't you? But Marv, I paid for matric last year. You're going to pay this year." And you give him a bill. He needs to learn his lesson in life, that things come with consequences. So you haven't thrown him away. You've allowed him to come with his problem to you. You've accepted him with his problem, but you've taught him a valuable lesson in life, that these things come with consequences and implications. Understand? You can't just be like, "Oh, daddy's not always going to be there to bail you out." Tomorrow, daddy closes his eyes and you flop in a business deal, and now you're sitting millions in debt. Now, nobody's going to be like, "Oh, okay, it was a balls up. Sorry, and we'll just waive it." It doesn't work like that. You have to understand that there are implications. So, therefore, no pun intended in the case of failing on matric, you have to do your homework properly. So, we have to impart. As a father, I have to be there for my children. How many of us spend quality time with our children? Because this is what builds that relationship. Ask yourself this question: how many children just wait for the weekend because my father's going to be at home? We always do something fun with my father on the weekend. My father is a, or I ask myself the question also, like, how many of us can say that my children have never heard me swear? My children have never heard me lose my temper. My children have never ever seen me misbehaving in public. My children have always known me to be a respectful, upright, decent man. I'll never forget Oma Poppy, for instance, right? Oma Poppy used to wake up, this is my mother's mother, right? My nanny, what a legend. Mama Poppy used to wake up every day without fail at around 4:30 to 5 o'clock every single day from the day she was a teenager, right? Because it was her job as a teenager to go and get the coal to start those old coal stoves so that the family can have breakfast when they wake up in the morning. And the first thing that must happen is when her father walks in the kitchen, she must put a hot cup of tea down for him, right? So she used to wake up without fail, 4:30 to 5 o'clock every morning, right? And I know this because as a child, I used to spend a lot of time with them. I used to go and sleep over by the house over the weekends and stuff. And then 4 o'clock in the morning, I jump in Oma's bed and ask her, "Oma, when are you going to wake up? Oma, is it 5 o'clock yet? Oma, when are you going to wake up? Oma." Then Oma gets upset. Then Oma wakes up. Then she would get ready and dress like she's going out, because why? Her husband is going to wake up and he must see her looking decent and beautiful and respectable, right? My grandfather never saw my grandmother without her dentures in, and she didn't have a single tooth in her mouth. It was full false teeth. He never saw. I never saw my grandmother without teeth in her mouth. But she didn't own a single tooth. It was plastic. How many of us have that kind of principles and etiquettes in our lives as wives? That my husband must look at me and I must look respectable, presentable, decent. Opa Gert, I never saw him walking around in his PJs. Ever. Ever. We used to gallivant in our pajamas the whole day in Opa's house, but Opa would be in a suit. Worst case scenario, jeans and a formal shirt and formal shoes. And that was not like a very casual. Yeah, if Opa Gert wore, what's it called, jeans and a golf shirt, then he can't have visitors, he can't have guests because he doesn't look presentable. Suit and tie every day, respectable. Never ever did anybody see him. And another thing that with regards to relationships. As a father, your children need to see you, that you have a positive impact on society in general. What positive impact do we have in society? Think about that. So these are the valuable things that we need to impart to our children, and it comes by living that example. I hope I have imparted some important information to you. That for me, it's more about when we hear about the status of a father in Islam. It's not as much about what the Sharia has accorded or afforded to him or granted him in terms of the status, because that's in its place. My question is always, as a father, do I qualify for that position in the first place? What am I doing to be that ideal father that is being referred to in the hadith? Am I like, I can give so many examples. My time is already 5 minutes over. So think about this. I need to impart decent principles of life to my children, valuable lessons that they can learn and grow with. I need to be what's it called, an example for my child of these examples and principles. I need to be accepting of my child. I need to create a haven for my child. My home must be a place where my child feels safe and accepted. No matter what, my child must feel like my father will accept me. My father will guide me. Yes, there may be implications, but my father will support me and assist me. Same goes for mothers. May Allah grant us tawfiq. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us tawfiq and understanding. And I really pray that we learn these beautiful qualities. I had a very lovely session now with you, reminiscing about Opa Khat and Oma Poppy. Oh, and she used to bake a fresh bread every morning. Allahu Akbar. What a bread. What a bread. So let us learn these principles, inshallah. May Allah grant us tawfiq and understanding. Anything that I've said that is correct is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the barakah of His Rasul, and the great benefit I've derived from my teachers. And whatever mistakes I have made and anything wrong that I have said is only from my nafs and shaitan, and me falling prey to the whisperings of shaitan, and Allah and His Rasul are exempt and absolved thereof completely. Jazakum Allahu khaira. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.